this video, we will delve into the movie The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. We will discuss its storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reaction. So, let's get started. This article refers to the 2003 live action film. For other namesakes as The Return of the King. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King is the third and final film in the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, directed by Peter Jackson and based on J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. Globally, the film is one of the highest grossing films in cinema history. The film won 11 Academy Awards at the 2004 Oscar ceremony, including Best Picture, sharing the world record of the most Academy Awards received with Pioneer and Titanic, and also was the first fantasy film to win Best Picture. The first two films are The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, and The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Also, the third film stories includes later events in the section of the book. The Two Towers, as well as the most of the ring. Like the two previous films, The Return of the King was a major box office success, grossing over $1.119 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing middle art film out of all six and was the second highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release, behind Titanic. It was also the highest grossing movie of 2003 and for the new cinema. As a whole, the movie even became the highest grossing movie for New Line's parent company, Time Warner, until Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 in 2011. The film is the third middle art film adaptation to be released and sixth and film chronologically. Andy Serkis appears as Smeagol before his regression into Gollum. This scene was actually held over from the previous film because it was felt that it would have a greater emotional impact if audience had already seen over during inflation and done to Smeagol in his degraded status. Gollum is played in the movies by CGI character whose movements are derived from a motion capture suit worn by Serkis, and sometimes from footage of Serkis interacting with the other actors and then digitally replaced by Gollum. The city of the Minas Tirith glimpsed briefly in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, in seen all its glory. The filmmakers have taken great care to base the city closely upon Tolkien's description in the book. Close-ups of the city are represented by sets and long shots by a large and high detailed model, often populated by CGI character. The film contains key scenes that occurred in the middle portion of the novel The Lord of the Rings but were not included in the film The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. These include the scene where the monster's Shelob attacks Frodo and is wounded by Sam, who comes to his aid. Other key events include the Siege of Gondor, J.R.R. forging of the shares of Narsil into the Aragorn's new sword, Andril, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas' journey through the parts of the dead. The epic battle of the Pelennor Fields, the charge of the Montgomery, and Eva's role in the defeat of the Lord of the Nazgul, the destruction of the One Ring, the final fall of Sauron, Aragorn's assumption of the throne, and the debut of several heroes to the Undying Lands. The Lord of the Rings movie trilogy is highly unusual, being the only movie series whose separate installments were written simultaneously and shot all at once, so that it could be considered three parts of a single very long film. This ensured that all three movies were consistent in terms of story, acting, effects, and direction. Plot: The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King picks up the story from the end, The Two Towers. The film begins with a flashback sequence where we discover how the character Gollum first came across the One Ring. Before becoming Gollum, he was a hobbit-like creature known as Smeagol. He is shown fishing with his cousin who, after being pulled in the water by a large fish, discovered the One Ring in the river Anjane. Samuel demands that the girl give him the ring of his birthday, but Yogol refuses. This leads to Samogul violently strangling him to death and stealing the One Ring. After killing his cousin, Samogul escapes to the misty mountains and slowly mutates into the creature known as Gollum. As the sequence ends, we see Frodo, Sam, and Gollum approaching the mountains of Mordor with Mount Doom in view. Gollum is still leading them, and Sam continues to have bad feelings on where Gollum will lead to them to. Frodo, however, has full trust in the creature. Gandalf, Aragorn's locals, Gimli, King Gambling, and Eomer arrive at a ruined Isengard, which has been flooded out by the nearby Isen River. There, they meet with the hobbits Merry and Pippin, who are eating and sitting on a field of victory. The Ent Treebeard tells the group that Isengard has been taken over by the Ents and that Saruman is imprisoned inside the Tower of Orthanc. At the foot of Orthanc, they confront a traitorous wizard who stands off his tower. Saruman says to King Theoden that they could be allies once more, but Theoden explains that they shall both have peace when Rohan avenges all the people killed at the Westfold and Helm's Deep by executing Saruman on a gibbet. Saruman mentioned to Gandalf that Frodo is heading towards immediate doom and that Aragorn will never be crowned king of Gondor. He reveals to the other story planter, which he kept in secret, and knows all the way of enemy. Then they are informed by Saruman that Sauron is raising his forces for a final strike. Gandalf makes an offer with Saruman to come down from his tower and be spared, but Saruman attacks him with a ball of fire instead. Luckily, the wizard survives and he shatters Saruman's robe, thus casting him out of the Order of Wizards. Before Saruman can give them more information, Grima appears. Theoden says that Grima is freed of Saruman and that he can surrender and be a man of Rohan, as he once was. Grima happily bows to the Theoden, however. Saruman insults the Rohirrim and claims that Grima will never be free and slaps him to the floor. In his anger, Wormtongue attacks Saruman, fatally stabbing him in the back. Legolas quickly fires an arrow into the Grima, killing him, but he is too late to save Saruman, who plummets from Orthanic's top and he is impaled on a watermill. Treebeard informs the group that he even will return to fill up Isengard as they once did. As the watermill spins and Saruman is submerged below the water, he drops the planter from his sleeves. Pippin slides the planter in the water and jumps down from Aragorn's house to get it. Upon finding the planter beneath the water, Pippin is told to give it to Gandalf and does so. But Gandalf is unsure in the Hobbit and known that he may be up to something. The group then ride off indoors where they will celebrate their victory at Helm's Deep. That night, there is a post-battle party in the Golden Hall, where King is given the cup of kings by his niece and addresses the people of Rohan, including Aragorn, speaking of the men who died defending the gates of Helm's Deep and saving their country. Then there is a huge fast where Eomer volunteers Gimli and Legolas into a drinking competition. Eventually, Legolas wins after Gimli passes out. Eowyn gives Aragorn the cup of kings. The Theoden joins her. He says that he is happy for her and that Aragorn is an honorable man. Theoden then says that it was not him who led their people to victory, but soon gets off the subject with Eowyn. Merry and Pippin are drunk and dancing, singing Song of the Green Dragon in front of a large crowd of Rohirrim men who are enjoying the show. Pippin pauses for a moment to find Gandalf watching him, but is quickly pulled back into the dance by Merry, and the pair continue to enjoy themselves. Aragorn they discuss with Gandalf the progress of Frodo and Sam on the quest to destroy the One Ring. Gandalf says has received no news of Frodo, and Aragorn says that every day Frodo moves closer to murder. Gandalf responds that his heart confirms Frodo is alive. Elsewhere, near the mountains of Shadow, Frodo and Sam are asleep whilst Gollum secretly snacks away to confront himself at a pool. Gollum and Samagol argue with themselves over whether will kill the hobbits and take the ring, but Gollum says that they shall lead Frodo and Sam up a stairway where she kill them. Then from the hobbit's remains, Gollum Samagul shall take the ring. However, Sam suddenly attacks Gollum, having heard his plans, but is dragged away from him by Frodo, who does not believe that Gollum is villain. Frodo leads Gollum away, who looks back at Sam, giving an evil grin. At doors, everyone is sleeping. Aragorn goes into the main hall, where Avon lies sleeping as Aragorn approaches to pull the quilt upon to her. Ewan awakens briefly to tell Aragorn of a great wave floating a great city, destruction and darkness. Aragorn listening and then watch as the falls back asleep. Walking outside, Aragorn goes to the Legolas, who is viewing the land, knowing that the eye of Sauron is moving to his next target. Inside the hall, Pippin, fascinated by the seeing stone, takes it from Gandalf, who he is asleep and ignoring Mary's urge to leave it alone. Moves to touch the planter whilst gazing into the crystal ball. Pippin is suddenly spanned by the eye of Sauron, who attempts to integrate the hobbit via physic link, barely able to resist Sauron's power. Pippin is nearly broken into the submission, but Gandalf and Aragorn wrestle in from tortured fingers. Pippin is left deeply snaken, but lives. Gandalf quickly rushes to the Pippin in a panic and asks whether he revealed anything about Frodo and the ring. Pippin confirms that he revealed nothing of Frodo and the ring, but that he saw a dead white tree in courtyard of stone, with the city around in flames. The next morning, Gandalf, Aragorn, Trajan, Logos, Gimli, and the hobbits Merry and Pippin meet in the Great Hall to decide on what is to be done. With the information Pippin has provided, Gandalf is now certain that Sauron will come after Pippin, thinking he has the ring. Pippin's vision, however, has revealed that Sauron plans to attack Minas Tirith, the capital city of Gondor, having been defeated at Helm's Deep. Sauron has realized that man might pose a threat to him. Sauron is not willing to let the free peoples of Middle-earth unite against him. Gandalf says to Theoden that if the beacons of Gondor are reached, then Rohan must be ready for war. But Theoden says that because Gondor never want to aid them during the Battle of the Hornburg, Rohan owes Gondor nothing when Aragorn says that he shall go. Gandalf instead enigmatically urges Aragorn to travel south and use the black ships to come to the aid of the Minas Tirith. He then mentioned that things have been set into motion that cannot be undone. He rides for Minas Tirith and that he won't be going alone. Pippin will be traveling with him. Leaving the Golden Hall, Gandalf says that of all inquisitive hobbits, Pippin is the worst. Merry is the furious with Pippin, saying that it is always him who causes trouble and distress. He and the enemy believes Pippin has the ring, and because they will be looking for him, they must get Pippin out of Rohan. When Pippin asks if Merry is coming with him, Merry says nothing in the stables. Pippin asks Gandalf on how far Minas Tirith, and Gandalf says that it would be 3 days. As the Nazgul flies, Merry gives Pippin the remaining long-bottom leaves. Gandalf that makes a speedy depart of Gondor with Pippin on Shadowfax, leaving a heartbroken Merry behind. Merry then goes to the view Gandalf and Pippin going away from it doors, and Merry says to Aragorn that he was always been there for Pippin. I know he's gone, just like Frodo and Sam. Aragorn then says to Merry that there is one thing he learned from hobbits, they are very strong of folk. Meanwhile, Arwen is traveling with a company of elves, including Figwit, credited as escort, towards the Grey Haven On the journey, she has a vision of Eldarion, her future son by Aragorn, which convinces her to turn back to the Rivendell. There she asks her father eventually to refuse Narsil the sword of Elendil, so that it may be given to the Aragorn. Elrond is resisted until he realizes that Arwen is becoming mortal. He is told by Arwen that this is her choice, and that there is no ship that can take her away now. Gandalf and Pippin meanwhile ride into the kingdom of Gondor and up a hill bank to view the huge and mighty white city of Minas Tirith, city of King. They ride up on shadow facts up every level of the city, from the first of the seventh until they reach the high court of the city thousands of feet above the land, right at the tip of huge rock row. Before entering the throne hall, Pepin notices the white tree from his vision, guarded by the fountain god, and Gandalf explained that the guardians believe that one day the white tree will flower again. Once the king returns to the throne, also Gandalf warns Pippin not to say anything to the current steward of Gondor, Denethor, about the death of his son, Boromir, Aragorn, or to say anything at all. Gandalf and Pippin go to the confront Lord Jintor seated on the steward's chair at the end of the great hall, where they discover that Jintor has nearly been driven mad by grief and is unwilling to ask for help in the defense of Gondor from the Tredun and the riders of Rohan, believing that Gandalf merely intended to use his forces to defeat the armies of Mordor, then replace him with Aragorn, Pippin, nonetheless pledges his service to Denethor is graduate from Boromir's heroic efforts to save Merry and him. Denethor tells Gandalf that he knows of Aragorn and will not bow to him, as the rule of Gondor is his. Gandalf is furious that Denethor was called or sent for Rohan's ad, but will just grieve with murder prepares its armies to crush Minas Tirith. He leaves with Pippin following him, furious with his steward's action, and walks across the citadel, telling Pippin about the lands of King filling in Gondor and about the white tree withering because of this. The rule of Gondor was given over to lesser men. He also says that Sauron forces will use a large block of fumes to cover Gandalf's sky and allow the orcs to pass into the fields and conquer the city. Meanwhile, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum continue their journey through woods near Gondor. Sam notices that the sky is growing darker every day, foreshadowing the foreboding events about to occur. Then Frodo notices a statue of a Gondorian king, but his head has been toppled, and another head carved by cross has been put in its place, making it. Then bright light from the sun reveals the king's original head, with a crown of flowers around the top. Same that says to Frodo, look, the king's got a crown again, but then the light goes behind the trees, and the original head of the statue goes dark and moves more. Frodo and Sam, with Gollum leading them, continue their journey. That night, at Minas Tirith, Pippin prepares his Gondorian armor whilst Gandalf overlooks Mordor in the distance from a balcony. Gandalf explains the intensity of the time that has come. Sauron has gathered at that he can fight his final war, a juggernaut army of his just orcs, but also hard-dream soldier, great beast and monster from the south, and even mercenaries fed from the sea. One way or another, the end of Gondor, as they know it, has come. If the orcs that the city of Osgiliath, it will eliminate the defense between Minas Tirith and the armies of Mordor. Pippin optimistically asserts the presence of the White Wizard on their side, but Gandalf is less hopeful. Gandalf also explained that Sauron has sent his most deadly and greatest servant to lead the forces of Mordor into war, who is assumed to be immortal against by any living man. The Witch King of Angmar, who was also the Nazgul who struck Frodo down on Wintertop. He is the leader of the Ringwraith and the most powerful of the nine, and Minas Morgul is his lair. Meanwhile, as Gandalf says that this Frodo, Sam, and Gollum moved towards the evil city of Minas Morgul. At Minas Tirith, Gandalf, Pippin, and the Gondorians witnessed the signal in the distance. At Minas Morgul, Frodo collapses and the city goes silent. Suddenly, the Witch King swoops out of Minas Morgul on his fell beast and lets out a terrible screech. This stuns Frodo, causing him to feel the red blade. Then the Witch King's winged steed makes the call, and the huge army of Sauron marches out of Minas Morgul towards Gondor, led by the Witch King, who swoops cut in front of them. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum begins to climb toward the high pass of Great Ongol. As they do this, Sam suddenly grabs Gollum, warning him not to do everything to Frodo. And if he does, Gollum will be gone. Sam then continues to climb with Frodo, and Gollum looks up at him with an evil grin. At Minas Tirith, Gandalf realizes that the Mordor army is on the move. He quickly has Pippin climb up to the signal beacon located high above Minas Tirith and light it. The Battle of Osgiliath. At the ruined city of Osgiliath, the Rangers here, led by the young captain of Gondor, Faramir, prepared their weaponry. Faramir is told that the orcs are lying low across the river. Scouts were sent to the care Andros to give early warning in case of the orcs were to attack from the north. Secretly on the river, the orcs are making their move onto large rafts. Among them, one hideously deformed orc is the immediate command. Gotham ordered his orc troops to be quiet whilst they approached in a surprise attack on the garrison. As the orcs draw closer towards the city, one soldier notices death approaching, and Gotham quickly orders his dismiss. Then an orc's archer kills the soldier, and Faramir is called to the scene, where he instantly realizes that they are about to be attacked and orcs are not attacking from the north. Then Faramir quickly leads to a heroic defense of the city, having all his men and guard each side of the river bank. But the orcs draw closer, and Gothmog orders his troops to draw their swords and prepare to invade the city. Faramir waits of the attack, his sword drawn as the orc hit the shot of the orcs. Inside them run into the Osgiliath. Faramir then nods to his men, then their time is right, and he charges into the invading orcs. His rangers and men of the garrison following the orc start attacking the garrison, and as more rafts hit the bank, a huge battle ensues. Soon the orcs lower a ramp on the bridge and swarm into the city. The garrison experiences a very early success, but are soon overwhelmed and overrun by orcs. Meanwhile, Pippin climbs up the Minas Tirith signal beacon high above the city, and cruelty sets into the light and sneak away. The Gondorian soldiers there stand up in confusion as the beacon lights in a large ball of flames. On one of the city walls, Gandalf goes to view the other beacons lighting up along the White Mountains. However, Denethor looks unhappily at the event through the throne room window. Gandalf knows that Ops has come to Gondor. The signal passes along Gondor's chain of beacons in the White Mountains, swiftly reaching Adors. There, Aragorn quickly runs to tell Theoden that Gondor calls for aid. After a brief moment of thought, Theoden declares that Rohan will answer and orders the Rohirrim to muster at Don Arrow. They will ride off Gondor and to war. Aragorn's Legolas and Gimli prepare themselves, and Aragorn notices that Eowyn will be riding with them. She says that the men have found Aragorn as their captain. They will follow him to the battle and even to death. He has given them hope. Gimli says to the Legolas that horsemen are not as good in battle than an army of dwarfs fully armed and filthy. Legolas, however, says that he is Gisn man. No need to ride to war, for he fears for war is already marching upon their own lands. Merry, meanwhile, pledges himself to Theoden, and the king of Rohan broadly escaped, except saying that Merry shall be Merry Dog square of Rohan. Now in the king's service, Mary happily puts on Rohan armor and prepares to ride with the Rohirrim to the J.R.R. At the Rohirrim gather, Theoden takes one last look up the banner of Rohan. Knowing that this will be the last battle he shall ride to. Gathering up, Amor bids the men of Rohan to fulfill the oaths they had taken and ride for Lord and land. It's said that Aragorn's legals, Gimli, Theoden, Eowyn, Emor, and even Merry leaves a doors for J.R.R. At Osgiliath, the orcs overrun the city and slaughtered everything in their path, defeating this garrison as his men around him. Faramir barely escapes an attack by orc soldier after a group of fellow rangers fire a small volley of arrow at the pocket of orcs pursuing him. He soon realizes that all hope of holding the city is lost. The orcs have won. He calls for a retreat. They ride for Minas Tirith. The men quickly flee onto their horses and race out of the city. During the attack, Faramir's lieutenant Mardil is attacked by an orc and left wounded. He is quickly finished off by Gothmog, who cruelly kills him with a spear. Gothmog then states to his troops that the age of man is over and then the time of the orc has come. As Faramir and his men retreat to Minas Tirith, they are attacked by Nazgûl on winged steed and many die across the field. As the retreating rangers are attacked, Gandalf and Pippin ride out of the Minas Tirith towards him on Shadowfax. The men of Minas Tirith watch as the rangers are saved by Gandalf, who drives the Nazgûl back the beam of white light from his staff. Inside the city, Faramir tells Gandalf to orcs overtaking the city and now crossing the river. Faramir then comes into the sight of Pippin, and his reaction to seeing Pippin reveals that he can recently seen other hobbits. Frodo and Sam, Gandalf is alarmed to hear that they are heading towards Gridge on Goal, but is worried and asks Faramir to tell him or he now. However, the narrator hears to his too and confronts his younger son in the throne room. He is ashamed of Faramir's loss of Osgiliath and the fact that he gave the warning to a hobbit and let him carry it to the murder. Denethor says that the ring should have been brought back to the citadel to be kept safe, hidden and secret in the dark vault, not be used until the time was right. He then says that the Boromir would have brought him the ring, but Faramir says that the Boromir would have done this. He would have taken the ring and fallen as Denethor rises from his throne in anger. Faramir says that the Boromir would have kept the ring of his own, and when he returned, Denethor would never again know him as a son. Denethor then leaps up in anger, saying then Boromir was loyal to him, and not a wizard pupil like Faramir. Denethor then collapses in grief, and it is revealed that he misses Boromir so much that he is no longer says Faramir is a trustworthy son. In this grief, he asks Faramir to leave his side, which he sadly does at the steps leading up to the passes of Krish and Gol. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum continue to climb. On climbing, Gollum is the first to climb upon a ledge and asks Frodo to continue climbing. But as he does so, he notices the ring dangling from the chain on his neck. Gollum reaches from it and Sam draws his sword, but Gollum then seemingly goes to grab Frodo's hand and pull him up. Then as Sam climbs up after them, Gollum starts to pour false accusation into Frodo's ear about Sam, saying that Sam will ask him to ring and takes it for his own. At Osgiliath, as the forces of murder prepare their army, the Witch King orders Gothmog to send forth all regions and not halt the attack until Minas Tirith is taken, commanding the orcs to slay everyone in the city. Gothmog asks for Gandalf's fate, and the Witch King says that he shall break him. At Minas Tirith, the soldiers are worried about the ask Gandalf if Rohan will come to aid them. Gandalf says that courage is their best defense in the throne hall. Pippin now wears Faramir's armor he wore as a child, and is told by Farmer himself that he never used to do his suddenly studying when he was younger. Instead, he used to waste time seeing dragons. He also says that Denethor made the armor for him, who has always seen Boromir as the stronger child. However, Pippin reminds him that Boromir has strength, but of a different kind, and one day Denethor shall see that in him too and actually come to value Boromir. Afterwards, Pippin enters Lord Denethor's services and puts his services and loyalty to him. However, Pippin is soon after shocked when he hears that Denethor wishes for Fromir to retake Osliges. On hearing this, Fromir realizes that his own father wants him to die for Boromir, who died in his place. Obeying this order, Fromir says that he shall do this command in Boromir's stead. But when he returns, he wants Denethor to think about of him. Denethor, however, depends that on the matter of this return. Fromir sadly leaves to go and try to retake Osliges, knowing that this act will claim his own life. Meanwhile, at the passes of Grish Ungol, the hobbits sleep on a ledge suspended hundreds of feet above Minas Morgul. In secret, Gollum gets up to his tricks and drops the hobbit's lambas right down to the cliff. Awaking, Sam discovers that has happened and instantly blames Gollum. Once Frodo awakens, Gollum goes to try and steer the events. He continues to play with Frodo's mind until it's too late. And when Sam suddenly asks Frodo if he can carry the ring, only wanting to help, Frodo's mind goes against him. He suddenly pushes Sam away in anger, and Gollum grins his plan is working. After trying to convince Frodo that it is Gollum's fault, Sam is horrified when Frodo falls for the ploy and tells Sam to leave. Sam does so, saddened and reluctant. Frodo continues to climb with Gollum behind him. Meanwhile, Fromir's cavalry rides broadly out of Minas Tirith as Gandalf tries to convince Fromir that his father is quite mad, but still loves him. Fromir sadly explains that he would do anything to defend Minas Tirith but knows that he will die at his father's will. Detachment charges out onto the open plains, heading towards Osgiliath as the thousand of orcs, which have overtaken the city watch, preparing their back blows. In Minas Tirith, Denethor has Pippin as his son and all his men ride to doomed fate, not realizing that is actually happening. Pippin sings, "Home is behind, double ahead, and there are many paths to treat it. Through shadow to the edge of night until the stars are all alight." Approaching, Osgiliath Fromir holds his sword out to the enemy, but the orcs there draw their bows and prepare to fire. In Minas, as Denethor aids, Pippin continues to sing. Mist and shadow, cloud and shade, all shall fade. And Osgiliath, the orcs are commanded by Gottmog to fire a huge volley of arrows upon the advancing horsemen. Letting their bows loose, the orcs rain arrow upon Fromir's cavalry, miscarrying them. A despondent Gandalf sits in silent lament, while Pippin weeps out at Denethor's indifference to the fact he has sent his son to his that whiling pigging out. At John Harrow, the Rohirrim gathered outside a huge cliff face, preparing their men and weaponry for war. King's children asked his men on the reinforcement, but is told that several alien alliances have not yet come. Soon after, now on top of a large campsite on side of huge cliff, King Chojan and Aragorn go up view the army, and Chojan says that there are 6,000 men ready. But Aragorn says that is not enough to break the lines of murder. Chojan says that more men will come, but Aragorn explains to him that every hour lost hastens Gondor's defeat. They have until dawn before they must ride. Also, the men here, along with the horses, are terrified of a road that leads to the mountains. Behind John Arrow, Legolas and Gimli are looking around, viewing the road when Elmore explains that his horses grow nervous at the shadow of the mountain. He tells them that everyone who never journeyed that road, never returned out the mountain is evil. Arrogant that goes to view the road and is especially frightened when he sees what appears to be spectral figures staring back at him. Gimli tracks him, and when Aragorn look back, the figure is gone. That night, Eowyn prepares Merry for battle, and he notes that his sword is not even sharp. Eowyn says that to the hobbit that he won't kill many orcs with a blunt blade, and then goes to take him to the cemetery. But as Merry goes, Eowyn is told by Emor that Merry is not ready for war. Eowyn asks why Merry cannot fight for those he loves, but Emor tells her that both she and Merry know little about war, and that war is the province of man, and then that Merry will fall to the fear of battle, and then he will flee when he comes face to face with the enemy. Meanwhile, in his tent, Aragorn has a nightmare about Arwen dying at Sauron's power, and he eventually shattering upon awakening in suddenly anger. Aragorn is called to the Theoden's tent, where he meets Elrond, who says of Arwen drawing as Sauron's power grows. Her lifespan degenerates. Elrond explains to Aragorn about Minas Tirith being lost because to the river, a fleet of corsair ships sail from the south. They are outnumbered, as Elrond explains, and he tells Aragorn that they need more men if they are to win this fight. Aragorn says that they are none, but Elrond that explains that they are those men that dwell in the mountain. However, Aragorn's only status that those in the mountains are murderers and traitors. They won't believe in anything and answer to no one. However, Elrond and says that they will answer to the king of Gondor. Elrond that presents Aragorn's wit and role the forgotten shades of Narsil with his blade. Aragorn can summon up an army that even Sauron cannot withstand. Elrond states to Aragorn that it is time to put aside the rancor and that it is time to become who he was born to be. Aragorn finally accepts his destiny to be king. Upon preparing to leave J.R.R, Aragorn is confronted by Eowyn, who begs Aragorn not to go and that the man need him. She confirms her love to Aragorn, but Aragorn instead tells Eowyn that he does not love her but still wishes her happiness. Accompanied by Legals and Gimli, he takes the paths of the dead in the mountains behind J.R.R. The soldier of Rohan watch as Aragorn depart, and one of the soldiers, Gimli, says that he leaves because there is no hope. However, Theoden tells him man that Aragorn leaves because he must, and even though their numbers are too few against the armies of murder, they shall still meet them in battle. Later that evening, Eowyn sadly views the mountain ahead, and she is accompanied by Theoden, who says that he has left a request for Eowyn to lead the people of Rohan if anything happens to him. Eowyn asks if he wants to give her another order, but Theoden says that he does not. But he says that he would have this niece smiling in the future times. Meanwhile, the three companions, Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, move slowly down the silent road that leads to the paths of the dead. Legolas tells them to the curse Isildur laid upon them for not fighting in war of the last alliances, never to rest until they have fulfilled their pledge to alliance to the Gondor. After a brief ride through the passes, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli approach the dark door, where a burst of evil scares the company's horse away. Aragorn, however, says that he does not fear death, and he enters the door. Legolas behind him, and Gimli soon to follow. As J.R.R hear him climb up into the horses and prepare to ride off Minas Tirith, King Theoden and Emor prepare the army, and Theoden says that it is a long road ahead, and both man and beast must reach the end with the strength to fight. Meanwhile, Mary is preparing to horse to ride to Gondor, but is told by Theoden that his journey has to come to an end. Then it is a 3-day ride to Minas Tirith, and none of his riders can have the Hobbit as a burden. Despite Mary's arguing to ride to war, Theoden dismisses him. Then as well hopes of riding with the Rohirrim seems lost. Mary is suddenly lifted up by an unknown rider and scooped away by him. But this is no man rider, but Eowyn, who says that Mary will ride with her. Mary gladly accepts. Eomer and Theoden muster the man and the Rohan army of 6,000 horsemen. All gallop out of Dun Arrow and away to war with Mordor. Meanwhile, the even more massive army of Mordor marched upon Minas Tirith, trolls and orcs alike. Inside the Dead Mountain, Aragorn, Legos, and Gimli moved through the tunnel and caverns of dead. Legos tells them to of seeing many images of dead men and of horses. Avoiding the ghostly mist, they locked the paths. Aragorn and his companions find themselves walking upon the skull and bones of many dead souls. Finally, the companions enter the lair of the King of the Dead and find the legendary ghost army that dwell in the immense cave. Aragorn's unafraid confronts them directly, saying that he can fulfill their oath. But the King of the Dead say none but King of Gondor may command him. Aragorn shows him on thrill, and as the King of the Dead attack, Aragorn parries his strike. The King of Dead snares. That lance was broken. In response, Aragorn seizes him, holds Andril took the king throat and replied that the blade and the royal bloodline it represents has been remade, and then pushes him back. Now with the ghost army's attention, Aragorn ordered them as their master to join him on the battlefield at Minas Tirith, and there, once they have destroyed the enemy, he will hold their oath fulfilled. He asks them for their say, but Gimli warns him that he is wasting his time. They had no honor in life and none know in death. Aragorn says that he is a soldier here and that he will fulfill their oath. However, the ghost refuses to slowly disappear. Aragorn calls out to them one last time, but they go. And Gimli furiously says that they are traitors. Then the walls begin to snag, and moments later, the entire cave collapses and thousands of skulls avalanche upon them. Aragorn's Legos and Gimli are driven from the caves by the cascade of skulls and barely escape. As they exit the caves, they arrive at the untrodden river and see in armed black ships. As they watch the ships leave a burning city, Aragorn falls to his knees, believing all hope of Gondor to be lost and to have failed. Then the King of the Dead suddenly appears from inside the mountain and agrees to join Aragorn in battle. The siege of Minas Tirith. At Gondor, the siege of Minas Tirith begins when the massive orc army of 200,000 troops launches its assault as using troll-driven siege to towers and huge catapults. Formid's lifeless from his dragged back first into Minas Tirith by his horse. The guards of the city quickly take hold of Formid's body and take it up to Citadel. Down on the fields outside the city, Gautama, who is full compound of the murdered army, feels a fear raking on the city. The sarcastically eases their pain by having his underlings release the prisoners, which they do, firing severed heads of dead soldiers from catapults at the walls, causing panic, disgust, and terror upon the city. The pair of Denator. Upon in the High Court, Denator proclaims that his lineage had ended after having the lives of his two sons spent. Pippin quickly goes to check Farmer's wound. He is still alive. He tried to tell Denator, ignoring Pippin's pleas. Denator says that the stewardship of the city has ended. Janitor Dead goes to view the huge army of murder outside the city. As they commence the assault upon his walls. Down on the field, Gottmog evil laugh as troops unleash numerous builders upon Minas, shattering many of building which the Gondorian soldiers just stand and watch. Now in a panic, Janitor stalks himself to all hope of being collapsed, feeling that Rohan has destroyed him and betrayed by the king. As more boulders hit his walls, Janitor instructed the soldier to flee from the mountain onslaught in an act of cowardice. Janitor is then suddenly isolated by Gandalf, who disgusted the janitor. Hits him several times with his staff, knocking him out. Gandalf then takes command and tells the city to prepare the battle. The wizard then quickly gets up onto his horse and rides out on the city, calling for the retreating soldiers to return to their post. Then the army of Gondor quickly stands upon the city walls as Gandalf goes to view the orc army. He calls for the Gondorians to send these foul creatures to the abyss. At Gandalf's orders, the Gondorians respond by launching their own catapult attack with tree bots, using debris and rubble from damaged walls and demolished city structures as ammunition, killing many orcs and destroying mobile siege tower and capabilities. The rocks fall down between the orcs, who look at them in fear, but Gottmog orders them to stay where they are. A catapult duel ensues between the Gondorian armies and the orcs, crushing troops in both sides. Then one catapult fired by Gondorians sends a bolter hurling towards Gottmog, but he quickly steps away from it. He spied at the boulder in disgust. Suddenly, high above the stage, the Witch King and the Nazgul attack the city upon their steeds, killing many men and inflicting heavy damage by destroying the Gondorian capitals, rendering them defenseless. Their sacrifice sent the Gondorians into maddened panic and Pipik, one of many caught in the fear. As the Nazgul swooped overhead, Gandalf ordered the men not to give him to fear, and has then stand to their post, nevertheless the danger. The Nazgul succeed smashed many buildings, and as Pippin runs through the city, he is knocked down by many terrified people trying to run away from the jaws. During these events, the trolls start bringing forth the huge siege towers, filled with many war-hungry orcs. Gandalf orders the men on the walls to aim off the trolls and not to tower themselves, and the soldiers do, shooting their arrow down upon the trolls. Soon one siege tower hits the wall, and orcs spill out, attacking the Gondorians, and after that, many more tower land, unleashing more orcs. Meanwhile, more orcs, determined to break through Minas Tirith Great Gate, large charge are battering them at the gates. As this happens, Pippin runs into the wall, where Gandalf is busy fighting off the invading orc. Gandalf shouts for Pippin to return the citadel, but Pippin says that he was called out to fight. However, as more orcs attack to intent on killing Pippin, Gandalf intervenes to save the hobbit life, Arbor telling him that the battlefield is no place for habit. As more siege towards him, the walls and orcs are let loose. One of them charges toward Gandalf, but Pippin quickly stabs the creature with his sword, killing it instantly. Gandalf turns to Pippin, saying that the hobbit is guard of the citadel indeed, but then quickly hurries him back up the stairs to the top of the city, where he can be safe. At the gates, the orcs continue to slam their battering ram at the gates, but the Gondorian Raj arched from up above fire arrows down upon the orcs, killing many and slowing down the ram. The gate is completely impregnable. Gottmog angrily tells his troops to return to the battering ram and smash the gate down. But he is told by one of his orc captain that the gate is too strong and nothing can breach it. Seeing his troops die one by one, Gottmog orders the orc to use advance on the gates with ground. A giant wolf-shaped battering ram. Soon after, Gron, driven by great beasts, advances upon the gates. Gandalf looked out over the walls to see Gron approaching, and as it draws closer, the orc chant its name as it prepared to breach the gates. It is Chose and elsewhere. Aragorns, Gimli, and Legals confront the black ships and the corsairs of Umber. Aragorn warns the corsair not to enter Gondor, but the corsair captain says that he cannot deny that passage. Aragorn lastly goes fire a warning shot past one of the corsair ear, but as he does so, Gimli deliberately nods his now, causing the arrow to hit another corsair in the chest, killing him. Gimli says the corsairs should surrender immediately, but when the pirates refuse, Aragorn has the army of death obliterate them. Meanwhile, Gollum leads Frodo towards Shalbo's lair in the catacombs near Kirch Ungol. Gollum says the Frodo must enter the tunnel and then there is no other way. Either he goes in goes back. Frodo says that he can't go back. The Frodo cautiously enters the caves which he filled with sticky webs and the remains of dead orc and other creature in the darkness. Frodo is abandoned by Gollum and left standing in dark gloomy caves. Meanwhile, Sam is climbing back John the Pass, saddened, and suddenly slips, falling into a ledge near the bottom of the step. There is he find he 11 bread which Gollum cast down into the ravine. Now arranged by way Gollum fold Frodo into the thinking that he wants to steal the ring. Sam realizes that he must go and rescue Frodo in the caves. Frodo in his panic after running nervously through the caves. Frodo suddenly encountered the great spider. Shelob. Frodo luckily managed to keep Shelob at bay the fall of Galadriel. He flees from her down the tunnel. Suddenly, Frodo is caught in one of her webs and realizes that since Gollum won't save him, it is deliberately trapped in his anger. Frodo cuts himself loose of web as Shelob draws closer to him and he flees the cave. Frodo is then attacked by Gollum, but he angrily pushes Gollum away and prepares to trench him. When Gollum says that the ring is the reason why he tried to kill him, Frodo says that he must destroy it for both their sakes. Walking away from Gollum, Frodo does not realize Gollum is about to attack him, and as he does, Frodo pushes Gollum down a cliff. Now alone, Frodo continues to move through the passes. At one point, Frodo faints and gives up saying sorry to Sam, but Galadriel appears to encourage him to go on and continue the quest. Frodo gets up and resumes the road. Near Gondor, the Rohirrim have made camp, where Ymir arrived to tell Theoden of the Mordor army attacking the wall of Minas Tirith. The first level already in flames among the soldiers. Merry says that he could be a knight of Rohan, capable of great deeds, but he is not. He is just a hobbit. He tells Eowyn that he just wants to save his friends Frodo, Sam, and Pippin. Now ready, the Rohirrim sound the war horse and prepare to ride off of Minas Tirith. Eowyn and Merry plays the Rohan helmet on. It is night and the Minas Tirith. The orcs and isolating the walls with molten boulders, their entire army marching up towards the gates. Inside the city, Gandalf charges the men of Gondor down to the first level of the city as ground thunders against the main gates. As this happens high above the even Denethor in his most extreme moment of madness, retreats into the tomb of the towers, intending to burn himself to death along with the still living body of Faramir. They move out the white tower of Actalion and past the white tree of Gondor, where one flower seemingly blooms. Pippins, suspecting sometimes disastrous going to happen, secretly follows the funeral parlor to the tomb in the hollows of the city where Denethor requests for his men to build a pyre. John at the gates, Gron prepares to break them open as fireballs fall open to the city's building. Gandalf in front of the frightened men of Gondor says that no matter what comes through those gates, that must stand their ground. It is done. That ground breaks the gates apart and Tross suddenly enters the city first and then followed by hundreds of orcs and the easternings of Rahun, who charge into the city, viciously attacking Gandalf and the soldier. The forces of murder pour into the city, burning the first level as Gandalf continued to lead the Gander forces against them. At the moment Sam arrives, holding the light of Arnball and Shallow, dialing her back to away from Frodo. He has retrieved Frodo's sword, sting and fight Shallow with great charges as the huge spider attacked with him with her claws and flanks. Eventually, after a brief fight, Sam severely wounds Shelob, leaving her partially blind and bleeding. She crawls away from Sam and back into her cave. Sam quickly rushes to the Frodo's side, only to find him still and lifeless, believing his friend to be dead. Sam cries, thinking that his quest is now over, and he holds Frodo's seemingly lifeless body in his arm, while Sam mourns over Frodo's apparent death. Sing glows blue, which herald, heralds a small company of orcs approaching. Hiding nearby, Sam overhears one of them, Gorbek, who says that Frodo is still alive. Sam overhears the orc saying that Shelob only Stinger have her victim to knock them out, as he perfect life brave. And Sam realizes that he has made a big mistake. The orcs take Frodo to the Tower of Courage on goal, imprisoning him in the highest room. Sam must rescue him at Minas Tirith in the hollows of the city. Pippin cruelty approaches the tomb of the Stavers where he realizes what is about to happen. He tries to intervene, but Denethor throws him out and releases him from his services and bars the tomb's door. He quickly runs through the burning city to tell Gandalf, but there is too much changes as injured Gondorians pour past him. Fiery bolters are hitting the city, and the people run off their lives, screaming as thousands of orcs run through it. Gandalf orders the soldier to pull back to second level and gets as many women and children to safety as possible. While out on the field, the orc forces receive order from Gottmog to enter the city and kill all in their path. Inside the first level, Gandalf fights long and hard to keep the orc wrecks and throws back, but the people of the city are being slaughtered as the soldier fight off many more invading enemies. Gandalf exhorts them to fight to the last man. Amidst the fighting, Pippin finds Gandalf and tells him of Denethor's madness. Gandalf quickly pulls Pippin up into his horse and quickly races towards the tomb to stop the obscene funeral pyre. Along the way, Gandalf confronts the Witch King. Gandalf wants the Witch King to return to the abyss that awaits him and his master, but the evil wretch snares at the wizard and uses his dark power to shatter Gandalf's stuff, blowing the wizard from Shadowfax. Pippin lunges at the Witch King, but is frozen in fear by the screech of his shade. Gandalf is half bitten and is about to be killed by the Witch King, who says that the wizard has failed and the word of man will fall. When war horns sound outside the city, drawing their attention furious, the Witch King lets out a shriek as he directs his winged steed away from the fallen. Gandalf, to confront this new threat, prepares his orcs for a second assault when he notices an army arriving in the distance. It is the Rohirrim led by King Theoden arriving at the Pelennor field. The Rohirrim look over the huge orc army massing outside the city. Eowyn and Merry look at the enemy and she tells the hobbit that coverage is needed. If they are to save their friends in the orc lands, Gottmog realizes the risk to his army and has the pigmen to go to the front lines with orcs behind them. As this happens, King Theoden does not take the orcs as a threat and rides past his army, giving his final commands. He says that Spear shall be shaken, shields splintered for this is a sword day and a red day. Arid the sun rises. As both armies prepare for the conflict, Theoden rides past the front lines of his men, tapping their spears with his sword. He says gloriously, Daddy rise now. To the oars ending, the men all yell their war cry that, and Theoden leads the charge. The 6,000 Rohirrim all charged down the field towards their opponents. Then the orcs at Gottmog's command fired their arrows upon the horsemen. But it's no use. The orcs all panic as the Rohirrim draw closer and Gottmog realizes that it's too late. The Rohirrims crash into the orcs and charge through their lines. The orcs cannot witness them as they are crushed beneath the trampling hooves in the top of the stairs. Dinit prepares to burn himself and Fromir alive. However, it is quickly stopped as Gandalf speeds into the room, urging him to stop this madness. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, is the third and final part of the Lord of the Rings film series. It is based on the J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, especially in its third part. The Return of the King, it was directed by Peter Jackson, and its screenplay was written by Peter Jackson, Fron Walsh, and Philippa Bowens. The film premiered in Wellington, New Zealand on December 1, 2003 and was attended by the director and many of the stars. Further premieres took after in major cities around the world in days, leading up to the film's worldwide theatrical release on Wednesday, December 17, 2003, with a runtime of 200 minutes, that is 3 hours and 20 minutes. Globally, The Return of the King became the second film ever to pass the $1 million mark at the box office. In 2004, the film won 11 Academy Awards, equaling the record shared by Ben Hur and Titanic. Plot: the film begins with a flashback sequence wherein we discover how the character Gollum first came across the One Ring. As the sequence ends, we find Frodo, Sam, and Gollum approaching the mountains of Mordor, with Mount Doom's eruptions disrupting the glows. The plot then switches back to the Isengard, Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Theoden, the victors of the Battle of the Hornburg. They confront the traitorous wizard. Saruman, they are informed by Saruman that Sauron is raiding these forces for a final strike before they can give them more information. He is attacked by this servant, Wormtongue. He is fatally stabbed in back and blunt from organic stop the implant on one of his machine, dropping from his slab a planchette which Gandalf retrieves. That night, after a post-battle party in indoors, Pippin, fascinated by the seeing stone, take it from Gandalf, ignoring Mary's urging to leave it alone, while guzzling into the crystal ball. Pippin is spied by Sauron and through a physic link the Dark Lord attempts to interrogate the hobbit, barely able to resist the eye's power. Pippin is nearly broken into the submission, but Gandalf and Aragorn wrest it from his tortured finger. Pippin is left deeply shaken but lives. Gandalf is now certain that Sauron will come after Pippin, thinking he has the ring. Gandalf knows that Sauron is also preparing to attack Minas Tirith, capital city of Gondor, and rides there with Pippin to alert the city's ruler, Lord Stavros Denethor, still mourning over the death of his son Boromir. Denethor refuses to accept Gandalf's offer of help from Rohan. At the same time, Frodo and Sam, led by Gollum, reach the gates of Minas Morgul, the main gateway into Mordor. As they are about to climb the stairs to the caves of Girch and Gol, a powerful beam erupts from Minas Morgul, and a huge army of orcs begins marching out to attack Minas Tirith, accompanied by the Witch King of Angmar, one of the Nazgûl. Gandalf and Pippin spot a beam in the distance and light the beacons at a mountain to alert nearby kingdom, including Rohan. Scene The Finding of the Journey to the Crossroads. The road to Isengard, the voice of Saruman. Return to Eor's Gollum Vilne. Ewan's dream, the planter. Arwen's vision, the reforking of Narsil. Minas Tirith, the decline of Gondor, crossroad of the fallen king. The deep breath before the plunk. Minas Morgul. Sam's warning, Pippin's talks. Osligesh invaded. The lightning of the beacons, Theoden's decision, the fall of Osgiliath, the wizard's pupil, the stairs of Grit on goal, coverage in the best defense, regain the tower god, alliance to Denethor, the parting of Sam and Frodo, the sacrifice of Vormir, marshalling at John Harrow, unreal flame of the west. Aragorn takes the parts of the dead, no more despair. Divimborg, the haunted mountain, the master of Rohan, the parts of the dead, the sage of Gondor, the corsair of Umber, Shalbo's hair, Mary's simple coverage, ground the hammer of the underworld, the tombs of the steward, breaking the gate of Gondor, the choices of Master Samwise, Denethor's madness, the Witch King hour, the rite of the Rohirrim, the pair of Denethor, the Battle of the Planar Field, the Affair Green Country, the Nazgul and his brave, the Bagships, Shield Maiden of Rohan, Victory at Minas Tirith, the Passing of Jordan, Oaths Fulfilled, the Houses of Healing, Pippin's Look After Mary, the Tower of Great Ungol, the Last Debate, Aragorn's Master Z Planter, the Captain and White Lady, in the company of orcs, the Land of Shadow, the mouth of Sauron, the black cat opened. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Their last move. Mount Doom, the eagle are coming. The crack of boom. Sauron defeated. The end of all things. The fellowship united. The return of the king. Homeward, bound the grey heaven. Credits. Official fan club credits. The notes are seen only available in the extended edition. Cut of the film. The notes are seen, which includes extended connect, only available in the extended edition cut of the film. Analysis. As confirmed in the feature in column in the extended DVD edition of The Lord of the Rings, the two tower and the Serix appear in person in flashback scene playing Samogul before his degradation into Gollum. This scene was actually held over from the previous film because it was felt that it would have a greater emotional impact if audience had already seen what Readings or influence had done to Samigul in his God the Godhead. State column is played in the movies by a CGI character whose movements are sometimes derived from a motion capture suit worn by Syracuse and sometimes from footage of Syracuse interacting with the other actor and then digitally replaced by Gollum. The city of Minas Tirith, glimpsed briefly into Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, in seen all its glory. The filmmakers have taken great care to base the setting closely upon Tolkien's description in The Return of the King. Book V, Chapter 1 Close ups of the city are represented by sets and long shot by a large and highly detailed model, often populated by CGI character. This film contains key scenes that occurred in the middle portion of the Lord of the Rings books but were not included in the film. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Tower. These include a scene in which the monster's Shelob attacks Frodo and is wanted by Sam. Other key events include the siege of Gondor, the reforging of the shards of the Narsil into Aragorn's new sword, Ardril, Aragorn's Gimli and Legolas journey through the path of the dead, the epic battle of the Planar Field, and the charge of the mumkill, everything being carefully choreographed in advance, a process Jackson described as like planning a real battle. Mary and Ivans rolled into defeat of the Lord of the Nazgul, the destruction of the Wandering, and the final fall of Sauron. Aragorn's assumption of the throne, and the departure of several of the heroes to the entering lands. The Lord of the Rings movie trilogy is highly unusual in that it so the only movie series whose separate installments were written simultaneously and shot not at once, so that it could be considered three parts of a single very long film. This ensured that all three movies were consistent in terms of story, acting, effects, and direction, cuts, and alternatives. According to British newspaper report appearing on November 13, 2003, Christopher Lee was unhappy to learn that a 7-minute scene featuring a confirmation as Isengard in which Gandalf casts Saruman's out of the order of wizards would not be appearing in the finishing film, and he decided to boycott the premiere as a result. Peter Jackson confirmed that the scene, although not in the theatrical release, would be included in the extended VHS and DVD editions. These were released on December 10, 2004 in the UK and December 14 in the US, with an expanded length of to 50 minutes, 4 hours 10 minutes, slightly shorter in PAL versions. The final 10 minutes of the extended DVD comprises a listing of the name of the charter member of the official fan club. Christopher, to apparently reconciled his difference with Peter Jackson because he appears on the behind the scene documentaries and cast commentary on the extended DVDs. The release of the theatrical edition had originally been scheduled for worldwide release in the late August, but actually appeared on May 2025. The early release of the standard edition had led some fans to hope that the extended edition might be released as early as August. But the release was actually put back from mid November, presumably because of the amount of work involved in preparing the extra footage and bonus material. Other rumors suggested that the extended DVD might be 5 or 6 discs act, with the movie occupying 3 discs rather than 2, and that the extended cut might be as long as 6 hours. In January 2004, Peter Jackson indicated that the then recently completed extended edition is actually 4 hours and 10 minutes long. He mentioned the inclusion of the Mouth of Sauron scenes as well as Frodo and Sam running with the motor Arcos. He also stated that not all of the unused footage shot for the movie would necessarily appear in the extended cut. In the director and writer's comment commentary on the extended DVD edition, he jokes about including some scene in the 25th anniversary edition, provided he is not too senile to remember better. The extended DVD is actually 4 disc cut like its predecessor, with the movie and commentaries occupying disc 1 and 2 and the behind the scene material on disc 3 and 4. A collection box set was also released, which also includes a sculpture of Minas Tirith and a bonus 50 minutes music documentary DVD. Howard Shore, creating the Lord of the Rings Symphony, a composer's January through Middle-earth. Fans also hoped that the extended disc would feature deleted scenes and outtakes, but none are included except for a few in the behind-the-scene documentaries. There are further rumors of an even more speculator Lord of the Rings trilogy box set in the future, and Jackson has half seriously mentioned the possibility of re-editing the trilogy into a TV miniseries along the lines of the Godfather movie, a sequence that did not make it from the book into the film at all despite the hopes of many fans, was the searching of the Shire in which the hobbits return home at the end of their quest to find they have some fighting to do. Owing so sermons talk ever of this Shire, Jackson felt that it would tax the audience patience to mount another battle scene after the critical conflict. The defeat of Sauron had already been resolved. In the book, the fall of Saruman takes place at the end of the sword scene. But in the film theatrical release, Saruman is left trapped in the Tower of Orthanc by the Ents. In the extended edition, Saruman appears on the roof of Orthanc, bringing a plunger and taunts Gandalf and his company, with hints of darkness in the heart of Middle-earth, which will destroy them. This is apparently a reference to Denethor's madness. Saruman is finally stabbed by Grima Wormtongue, which in the book occurs at the end of the scoring of the Shire, and Grima is shot by Legolas. In the book, he is shot by Hobbit. Saruman falls from the tower and is impaled on a wooden stake projecting from a mill wheel. This is an homage to Lee's Dracula movies. Peter Jackson wanted to be the last actor to drive a stake through his heart. The plancher then falls into the water, where it founded by a pipeline. In the theatrical version, there is no explanation as how to the plancher fell into the water. In the book, Grima simply throws the plancher at the company, not releasing its volume. Fans hoped that several other key scenes from the book would be included in the extended cut. Although inevitable, not all of them were. Book Theoden meets Merry and Pippin and calls them folly, suggesting that he what hobbit is derived from Rohan's. Pippin comments that the king of Rohan is a fine old fellow. Oh, very polite, Merry promised to tell him more about Pipeweed and relationship of Merry and Pippin with Theoden and Denethor too are more significant in the book's movie. Just as the scene where Merry pledged his allegiance to Theoden book on the way to the Morgul, while Frodo, Sam, and Gollum pass through the crossroad, where there is a giant statue of a sitting king with his head lying on the ground nearby, crowned anew with flowers that have grown there, an image of hope amid this destruction. Movie included without alternation. Book The Witch King enters Minas Tirith when its cat is breached and challenged Gandalf to fight. But as a cock crows, the honor of the Rohirrims announce their arrival and the Witch King is forced to return to meet that assault. In the book, this takes place at the gate of Main Street movie. When the gate is breached, our troll and orcs enter the city. Shortly afterwards, the Watch King, riding his fell beast, intercepts Gandalf and Pippin on Shadowfax, who are racing from the gate to the citadel at the summit of the city to save from being burned alive by Denethor. The Witch King holds up his sword, which erupts into flame. Gandalf is then thrown off his horse in staff breaks, presumably because of the Witch King's power. The arrival of the Rohirrim is announced by their horns, but there is no sound of a cock crowing first, despite the fact that Tolkien described this one of his favorite image book. The Rohirrim bypass the main road to Gondor by recognitions with the wild man of Doraden forest for passage through their woods. Movie. There is no mention of the wild man or of the Doraden forest. The Rohirrim just ride all night. Book. In the pair of Denethor scene, it is revealed that Denethor has a planter, usually kept in a secret room at the top of the White Tower of Actolium, which has been using to obtain strategic information for the defense of Gondor. But Sauron has inflated that planter and used it to show Denethor a version of the Black Ships. The vision is true as far as it goes, but Denethor does not realize the ships have been taken over by Aragorn's army. Movie not included, but there is a scene after the Battle of Banner Field where Aragorn finds a planter in Denethor, clocking the throne room and reveals himself to Sauron see below. The implication that he is the cause of Denethor's madness is left to viewers with knowledge of the book. Denethor in the theatrical cut thus cryptically says that the eyes of the White Tower are not planned, and implies that he has a seeing stone, which someone that read the book might understand but would be lost on a movie only audience. It is also possible. However, Daddy Plancher Aragorn's use was the stone of organic, and Danny Singh, a stone was completely cut out of the film's book. Eomer grieves over the death of Eowyn and Theoden after the Battle of the Pelennor Field movie. We see Eomer's shock at his sister's apparent death and his attempts to nurse her back to health with the aid of Aragorn's book. Aragorn cursed Eowyn, Faramir, and Merry into House of Healing. His healing of Faramir and Merry is not included. Although the healing of Faramir was reportedly filmed, book Sam must use the Veil of Galadriel to get past the silent watch of Kirish Ungol. Movie also these silent watchers briefly appear on screen. Sam's confrontations with them, which was repeatedly filmed, is not shown. Book Faramir and Ivan meet and fall in love in the House of Healing. Movie referred into in a brief scene in which they begin to bond. Book Aragorn reveals himself and his reforged sword to Sauron using the planche recovered at Isengard. Movie include with alternation takes place following the last debate. Sauron relatives by showing Aragorn's a vision of Orwin apparently, drawing which is not in the book. Incognito orc armor, Sam and Frodo are forced to march with a band of orcs who are heading for the Black Gate. Movie included the scene ends with Frodo and Sam pretending to fight, causing the other orcs to join in, and shipping away while they are distract a simplification of the original scene. The mouth of Sauron taunts Gandalf at the Black Gate and he presents evidence that Frodo had been captured, which was true. Although Frodo was rescued by Sam before he could be interrogated, movie include with alternations. The mouth torments the Fellowship by claiming that Frodo has been horrible, tortured, and killed. He then taunts Aragorn over his broken sword, and Aragorn decepts him with the reforged order. In the book, he is allowed to live until the battle. Book The spirit of Sauron rises like a black cloud from the ruin of Barad-dûr before being blown away by the west wind. Movie not included in both versions of the film. The destruction of the ring causes the eye of Sauron to erupt in flame and he explode as Barad-dûr collapses. Book After the coronations, Gandalf consults King Lazar and shown him where to find a seeding of 40 white tree. Movie not included in the extended cut. Gandalf tells Pippin that the dead white tree remains in the courtyard in the apparently full rain, hope that it will blossom again. In a later scene, the tree is seen bearing single white flower. During Aragorn's coronations, the courtyard is covered by the blossoms, and the tree is seen in the background in full bloom. Book Eowyn disguises herself as Darnellem and smuggles Mary along with her, allowing them both to take place in the Battle of Pelennor Field. Movie included with alternation. Eowyn does stay with the Rohirrim and does take Mary with her. However, at no point does she use the guise of Darnellem. Her face is never completely concealed, thus the audience is always aware of who she is. While some have argue this takes away the surprise later, when Darnellem reveals herself to be a woman, but told that no man can kill the Witch King. It has been counter-argued that having the audience know who she is maintains their emotional investment in her character. Other alternations to the story include in the film shards of Narsil are reformed by Elrond and Aravans are going, and Elrond travels to Rohan where he presents the reforged sword to Aragorn and orders him to take the parts of the dead. In the book, Narsil was reforged when Aragorn first brought the hobbits to Rivendell, following a prophecy that the reforging could only take place after Isildur ban daring was found. The company of Rangers of the North, who along with the two sons of Elrond join Aragorn after Saruman is defeated, do not appear at all in the film, in which Aragorn, Legals, and Gimli take the parts of the dead alone. One of them also presents Elrond with a banner woven by Arwen. Elrond appearance in which he presents Aragorn with Androl and the previous film Elvish Army at the Hornburg particularly substitute. In the book, the Rangers, Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn ride through the mountain path to summon the Roded. Then ride through the mountain valley to the stone of Arak, where the dead agree to serve. Aragorn then leads the dead and members of his group to attack the Corsairs. After that defeat the Corsairs, they disappear and the ships carry Aragorn, the Rangers, Legos, Gimli, and some forces from Sauron. Gondor to the Battle of Plainer Field in the movie. Aragorn gets the dead to serve in an underground cave. Exit the underground path at Pelargir to see the Corsairs, the dead then sail on the ships to Plainer Field. No rangers or Southern Gondorians are in the movie. The book version makes more sense where considering the maps as Pelrigger is long away from Andros or Minas Tirith and Aragorn's Legals and Gimli run for a short term considering the distance. Also in the film, the dead are used to completely overrun and destroy the forces of murder on the planar field. Through in the book, the dead were only used to defeat the Corsairs of Umber. In the book, the beacons of Gondor are it light before Gandalf and Pippin arrive. As a part of Denethor's careful mustering of Minas Tirith defense in the film, Denethor refuses to light the beacon of Minas Tirith or indeed to organize any defense of the city. So Gandalf persuades Pippin to snag past the guard and light it, causing the rest of the beacons to be lit in the response. In the book, Gondor's former request for aid is sent to Rohan by courier carrying the red arrow. Although Rohan was already mustering to Gondor's defense, in part at Gandalf's urging. In the film, there is no courier and the riders are sought to help Gondor by the beacons above. In the film, Gollum tricks Frodo into the mistrusting Sam and sending him away, so that Frodo enters Shelbo's lair alone in the book. Frodo and Sam have no break in their trust, except for a brief instant upon Frodo's rescue from the Orc Tower, where he demands that Sam returns the ring. In the film, the burning Denethor runs along the prow of Minas Tirith and falls like a meteor. In the book, Denethor lights his spear and drives down upon it to burn, grasping the planter. In fact, the prow of Minas, located on the 7th level, is on the opposite side of the city from the fuel chambers, where the pier is located on the 5th level. While on fire, Denethor would have had to run across the entire city to fall like that. In his commentary on the extended DVD, Peter Jackson admits that he was aware of the distance issue but includes this scene for dramatic effect. Unlike the book, Mary is not taken to the House of Healing to recuperate from his encounter with the Witch King with the aid of Aragorn's knowledge of the healing herb, Atlas, which are also uses to heal Faramir and Eowyn, but instead rides out to the last battle alongside Aragorn and Gandalf. In the book, there is a very rare sequence of light-threaded comedy in the House of Healing, where a Gondor doctor repeatedly decides herbal lures to a very frustrated Aragorn, who wants to help but has no interest in hearing the bumbling healers in Andal's dreams about him. This is omitted in the film. In the book, Gollum slips accidentally into the gates of doom while dancing in triumph after beating the ring of Frodo's right and hand third finger. In the film, Gollum bears a ring of Frodo's index finger, and Frodo jumps on him one last time, causing them both to fall. It is subsequently revealed that Frodo was able to catch himself on the rock below the recipe, from which Sam pulls him back after a brief hesitation by an apparently suicidal Frodo. In the film, it is not revealed that Frodo is to sail to the west with Bilbo, Gandalf, and Rod, Galadriel, and Celeborn until after most of them have boarded the ship. In the book, Frodo and Sam join with Bilbo and the elves in the woods all while traveling to the harbor. In the books, Celeborn also takes a later ship. Following the destruction of the One Ring, most of the second book of the Return of the King involves tapping of loose ends. Although Tolkien considered the scoring of the Shire to be one of the most important chapters of the trilogy, it is completely omitted from the film. These are only brief summarized in the film, where we are get hint of Frodo's periodic bouts of illness. Following his return to the Shire, we see Sam getting married to Rice, and we follow Gandalf entering Barrier's departure from the Grey Heaven. The film's closing scene shows Sam returning from saying farewell at the Grey Heaven and coming back to the Shire and his home and family returning at midnight in book during the day in the film. The film remains faithful to the book in quoting the last line spoken by Gandalf: I will not say, do not weep, for not only tears are annual. Although Gandalf has some minor dialogue, follow this in the movie and by Sam Will I Am Back. On January 2004, 17 January, the film was nominated for 11 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Score, Howard Shore, and Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing. Best Makeup, Best Music Song, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects. However, none of the ensemble cast received any acting nominations on February 29. The film won all 11 Academy Awards, winning in every category for which it was nominated. It tied with Ben-Hur and Titanic for the most Oscars ever won by a single film, and broke the previous record for a sweep set by Gigi and The Last Emperor. The film was the first of the fantasy genre to win the Best Picture award. The film win was also the second time a sequel had won the Best Picture category, the first being The Godfather Part 2. It could be argued that it is an effect that the third sequel to win Best Picture, as The Silence of Lambs was based on characters appealing in Manhunter in the opinion of some criticizers. However, this accolade was not just for the merits of the individual film, but more a reward for the trilogy as a whole. The film won also 4 Golden Globes, 2 MTV Movie Awards, 2 Grammy Awards, 9 Stern Awards, and the Hugo Award. Score: The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Original Motion Picture Soundtrack. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, The Complete Recording. Box Office Records. After 2 years of attention and acclaim since the release of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring audience anticipation for the final installment of the trilogy and reached a fever pitch when he movie from finally released to theater on December 17, 2003. New Line Cinema reported that film first day of release, a Wednesday, saw a box office total of $34.5 million, an all-time single-day record for a motion picture released on a Wednesday, until Spider-Man 2 came along and grossed $40.4 million. This was nearly twice the first day total of The Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship of the Ring, which earned $18.2 million on its first day of release in 2001, and a significant increase over The Lord of the Ring. The Two Tower as well, which earned $26.1 million on its first day in December 2002. The substantial increase in initial box office totals caused optimistic studio executive in forecast that The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King would surpass The Lord of the Rings, The Two Tower in total earning. If this proved to be true, then this would be the first blockbuster movie trilogy for each successive film to earn more at box office than its predecessor. When all the films were blockbuster success, the general opinion in movie circle in 2003 was that a movie had to earn more than $150 million to be considered a blockbuster. These forecasts proved accurate, according to Box Office Movie. Between the time of the film's release, it's winning the Academy Award for Best Picture on Sunday, February 29, 2004 and Thursday, March 11, 2004. Return of the King had earned approximately $1,052.54 to 93 in worldwide box office revenue, $3,068 in North America, and $8,683,649,123 in 60 countries worldwide. The final North American box office stand at $377,027,325, and the worldwide takes is $1,118, about $741 million about overseas. The worldwide revenue is slightly enhanced compared to the earlier movies when converted to US dollar because of the decline in the dollar's exchange rate in 2003. It was his second film in history to earn over $1 billion in box office revenue in its initial release, the best first being Titanic in 1997. This compares favorably to the first two films of the trilogy. In their first 35 weeks of theatrical release on North America, the gross income of the first two movies was $313,364,114 million and $339,789,81. These figures do not include income from DVD sales, TV rights, etc. It has been estimated that the gross income from non-box office sales and merchandise has been at least equal to the box office for all three films. If this is so, the total gross income for the trilogy would be in the region of $6 billion, a very respectable return of $300 million investment. I will read from my review of the Two Tower how much I have enjoyed revision of the Lord of the Rings, altered in both book and movies format. In each area, there have been awesome nonsense to catch and extended bites to take note of in the difference and similarities between the two. If anything, this exercise has emphasized to me, I just know epic Tolkien's story was open release and II. How well these movies, particularly his extended editions, adopt his works. Return of the King in particular felt like The Lord of the Rings. I would had the longest step in revisiting. No particular reason very really. And to be fair, it had been a year for all three films regardless. But there were so many new things I understood, better in Return of the King in particular, that it cemented its legacy in my eyes. By now, it should be no secret that I find this trilogy to be one of the best ever created. Both The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Tower get perfect score from the spoiler Return of the King. Won't be much different. Watching it now 20 years later makes it all the more impressive because of how awesomely it has held up. In a day and age ruled by the MCU and its expensive, enjoyable cast of character, and show like Stranger Things that feature more great characters in a classic good versus evil shadow. It's easy to see the far-reaching influence of Lord of the Rings film and books. Return the King was the endgame before Endgame in other words. I have already praised the series for pretty much or everything it can be. So instead I will focus on what Return of the King truly wrote in the stone for me about this series. The cast abundantly clearly in each film but completely deemed one of the best ever. In Return of the King, every character is portrayed by the perfect selection of actor, actress, even side character, urban, former etc. are chosen well. But specifically, our core cast is full of instances where you could never think of another person in the role. Does anyone but Viggo Mortensen become the long lost King Aragorn? Could anyone but Lan McCallum be the stock Gandalf divide we needed? Or Elijah Wood and Saint Astin and Frodo and Sam? To me, the answer is that no one could have done it better. The original score, by now you all know that I am a sucker for an original score. I am not sure there is a single movie in my top 10 feature, a week average one. Lord of the Rings score by Howard Shore is nothing short of brilliant, especially in A Return of the King. There is no many additional nonsense here, particularly near Jim and during two epic moments that are subtle but elevate the hell out of the film. Perfect example. When Gollum and Ring are falling into the fires of Mount Doom instead of some triumphant blast, where met with the final strained area turned to meet Sauron's unprecedented evil nature. It's something you may hardly notice, but I found it unerring and highly effective this rewatch, and there is lots of other little moments like it. The story and direction. Sure, it feels like it takes 45 minutes to warm up to these goodbyes. It's actually only 20 minutes even in the extended edition. But otherwise, the story is, as my wife pointed out, just about friendship. She's right, The Lord of the Rings and especially Return of the King is about being there for your friends when they need you most. The comparison throughout is continuous, whether it's Frodo and Sam and their trials and tribulations, Aragorn and Gandalf and Co. facing almost certain demise, or Gimli and the ghost stating that each would be happy to die alongside a friend. It makes the ending reunions that much sweeter and the ending departures that much sadder, all while epically wrapping up a huge story in a satisfying way. Game of Thrones only wishes it could have been as successful in conclusion as this. Aside from those three things which encapsulate a lot, there is a plenty of continued praise for my many other elements. The special effects, which are the best of the three, hold up really well. Pacing is spot on, even in the extended edition, and there is so many collection of scenes that brought into your mid weapon singing while Gondor soldiers ride to Osgilish anyone. It is almost unbelievable. The battle are epic and feature fun combat bits through. I do think Helm's Deep maybe features more cool choreography action beats and the cinematography of New Zealand landscape remains iconic and drool worthy. What else is there to say about this timeless trilogy? Much like the book it's based upon, it will stand the test of time easily and is already proving that with 2 decades under its belt. There is a reason it won an enormous amount of Academy Award and box office success. It was impossible to deny the fact that we criticize and general audience alike. We're witnessing greatness, revisiting it, especially with my wife experiencing it for the first time. It was almost as memorable as the first time. I saw them in a theater and I can't wait to do it again several years down the line. Combs' handful of special effects have not aged well. Epilogue feels long, tons of scenes that did not make it to the theatrical version that should have. For example, Mouth of Sauron. Prose, the epic conclusion to a timeless good versus evil story about friendship, plethora of scenes that ingrain themselves in your memory. Designed with thoughtful and care with a what a care cost, simply perfect in every way. Original score is one of the most fitting hour created for a series, and this film is a particularly has the best one yet. Incredible direction of the source material to make a film. that tugs at the heartstrings, inspires and wows. Impressive special effects, even by today's standard. Many practical effects were possible. Striking cinematography and once again to New Zealand landscape is a sight to behold. Equal measures entertaining and art. This is one of the best third act of all time. In the trilogy. Now before you get all reeled up and start throwing tomatoes at me. Read the next sentence. I recently rewatched the epic conclusion to this story, and my opinion on the project has changed entirely. This epic film blew my mind in so many ways, and it's by far my favorite film, and the OG tree. Here's why. I have a newfound application for fantasy that I did not have the first time I watched Return of the King. When I watched Lord of the Rings for the first time, I had Game of Thrones and Harry Potter under my belt in my fantasy realm. But really nothing else. Coming back around to LOTR, things were different. I am a Rings of Power fan now. I read fantasy books regularly and I am a big fan of other shows within the genre like House of the Dragon. So I was ready for all the lore and fantastical fun for this. As I mentioned, I came into this lecture watch as a fan of Rings of Power, which is vital information when it comes to this end over. My understanding of Middle Earth was so much deeper because of it, and I had a much bigger appreciation for characters like Elrond and Isolde. So, in the grand scheme of this massive story, I did not feel so overwhelmed by it all. I was enthralled instead. That shift in mental and overall acceptance of the fantasy genre really set up my success with literature this time around instead of slogging through the movies. I was excited to be immersed in the world, and by the time I got around to Return of the King, I was 1000% in on everything that was happening. Why Sean Astin did not get any Oscar nomination for playing Sam is beyond me because he carried his movie. The Lord of the Rings are objectively some of the best movies of 2000s, and it was proven his part by its massive number of Oscar nominations. The franchise as a whole was nominated for 30 Academy Awards, and it won 17 with Return of the King, notable taking home Best Picture. However, when it came to the larger cast, only Lan MC Callums for performance in Fellowship of the Rings got a nod. And that is bonkers, especially when you realize that Asin Astin was not nominated for his portrayal of Sam in the third film. Not only does Sam voice game key literally carry Frodo is the return of the king, he also carries this film. The Hobbit goes on intense emotional journey across the 3 hour film as he works to spot his friend, figure out what Gollum's deal is, and ultimately get that ring into the fire of Mount Boom. He is the hero of this journey, and I can say that with such confidence because of Sean Astin's performance. The Oscar should have been playing the scene of Sam crying as he asked Frodo to remember this Shire, and they should have been singing the praises of Astin's deeply emotional and moving sporting performance. Sam was the heart of the story to me, and his ability to keep going to his quest, despite his challenge, made me so emotional. I could feel the weight of the world on his shoulder as Austin gave us a gagging performance that created the greatest highlight of this movie for me. I loved how the characters' various stories were told throughout the final battle. I have never been fond of battle. After a few minutes of violence, I always feel like I have gotten the point and we can move on. However, in Return of the King, I never felt that way because of how expertly the stories from within the battle were told. A very large chunk of this film is the big battle, and the first time I watched it was exhausted by it. However, this time I found myself looking forward to it and grasping at all the stories I could. Personally, this subplot within this battle that hit me the hardest was the one involving Mary and Ewan fighting their way to the front line. I loved how their arc started with them fighting to fight, short jump traveling through the travel of the battle and then landing on the front line and taking down the Witch King. Not only was improving moment, but it was a wonderful through line that ran through this listener war. Being able to latch onto the track and various plot points like Pippin and Gandalf in the castle line to save farmer or Aragorn's Legolas and Gimli bringing the ghost army to the battle was an experience I did not enjoy the first time around. However, on this watch, it was as easily one of the best part of the movie, and I think that's thanks to how my appreciation for fantasy has evolved. Can we take a minute to appreciate people's character growth? The part of Return of the King that surprised me the most was Pippin's storyline. In Fellowship of the Ring, he and Mary was just there for a good time. In Two Tower, the hobbits got a fun but isolated story with the fan, and then it's Return of the King. Both of them, but specifically Pippin, turned into certified heroes with an epic arc. Starting with him finding the planetary, we see Pippin's recklessness get the best of him, which is honestly tragic then when he gets separated from Mary, which was a tear-jerking scene by the way. He is forced to learn to listen and really get his act together. He is seen with Gandalf were both endearing and transformative, and it's made a so moment like him lighting the beacon really paid off. Overall, Pippin's I did not leave this battle as the same hobbit who entered it, and I loved seeing him involving him into the hero is at the end of the movie. That can be said about every character in this film, and it's truly well, here it is, the first December in 4 years without a lot of readings. Movie to look forward to in theaters of all the happy Hollywood endings we have seen over the years. The story of the movie is probably the best. It could have been such an abject disaster. Look at same recent novel adaptations that turns into train wrecks. Dreamcatcher, Timeline, Treasure Island, just to name a few. As I said before, when I learned in 1999 that Peter Jackson had gotten a $300 million check to adopt Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, I thought someone at New Line needed their head examined. That Life is a crazy and fun movie, but did he have the capacity for a movie that required grandiosity of cameras like proportions? The irreforable answer came last February 28 when Steven Spielberg handed out Football Golden Statue to Peter Jackson for his Best Director award. It's hard to be unhappy with 11 Oscars, a win in every category for which it was nominated. But you could be forgiven for feeling that Sean Astin was wrongly denied, as with Patrick O'Brien's and the Master and Commander adaptations. I have wished J.R.R. Tolkien's were alive to see his great work made into a great film, and wondered if he would approve. Of course, the movies are not a perfect adaptations. No book is ever adapted directly to the screen. There are persist who objected, and there are some points to be made. When he sticks to Tolkien's, Jackson is at his best. When he starts to debate, well, it depends on your viewpoint. Some of his number borders on demonstrate, especially when you scenes on this DVD. Other things just don't work. Jackson made some choices that caused controversy, but they were made for the sake of filmmaking, and I found myself in agreement. Moving the Hobbit Shelob confirmations from the Two Tower to this film was one of them. Jackson's argued that without it, there was little for the halfling to do in film day. As for some of the other chants, hey, who know why hobbits all permit molars like the member of Def Leppard back in 1980s. To his credit, Jackson avoided the pitfall that I felt tripped up Guillermo del Toro with Hellboy, while Jackson was loyal to the books, frequently consulting with the fan club during pre-production. He was not so loyal that he could not make the hard decision to cut something or make a needed change. I thought that was Del Toro's only real sin. He loved his creation so much that he could not cut when and where it needed it. In this case, these extended editions are Jackson's gift to this fan. He has said that theatrical cuts are his preferred cuts, and who are we argue? He's got a gold statue to show for it. 4 hours later, I liked these scenes that were added, and would it not feel like a chore to watch a 4 hour film. Merry Christmas from Peter Jackson. Now it's open the presents. Here's how the no footage breaks down. New scenes, extended scene. This one. The finding of the ring. The journey of the crossroads. The road of Isengard. The voice of Saruman. Return to Adors. Gollum's villainy. Eowyn's dream. The planter. The Arwen's vision. The reforging of Narsil. Mina's death. The decline of Gondor. The crossroad of the fallen king. The deep breath before the plunge. Mina's Morgul. The warning of Sam. The board is set. Oslig is invaded. The lightning of the beacon. The Wizard's pupil. The series of Gritch on goal coverage. It is the best defense. Pre-Grins, soldier of the Tower God. Allegiance to Denethor. The parting of Sam and Frodo. The sacrifice of Fromir. Marshalling at Dunharrow, untrailed flame of the west. Aragorn takes the parts of dead. No more despair. Divimborg, the haunted mountain. The master of Rohan, the king of dead. The sage of Gondor. The crosses of Umber. Shelbob Hilaire. Mary's simple coverage. Ground, the hammer of the underworld. The tomb of the tower. Breaking the gate of Gondor. The choices of Master Samwise. Denethor's madness, a lord of Nazgul, the ride of the Rohirrim, the pair of Denethor, the battle of Planar Field, of far green country, the Nazgul and his prey, the black ships, shield maiden of Rohan, victory at Minas Tirith, the passing of Theoden, oath fulfilled, the houses of healing, Pippin find Mary, the tower of Grish Ungol, the last debate, Aragorn and the Planter, Fromir and Eowyn, in Orc's company, the land of shadow, the mouth of Sauron, the black gate open. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. The last movie, Mount Boom, the eagle are coming, the crack of doom. Sauron defeated, the end of all things. The fellowship united, the return of the king. Homeward bound, the grey heaven, and the credits, fan club credits. I will be going into the detail on major new scenes and the extended scenes on the following page. If you did not wish to be spoiled, this is your last warning. Click on the next. The voice of Saruman. Saruman appeared from the top of this tower and asked Theoden for space. The king is no mood and wants a piece of Saruman's hide. All of this conversation is done in normal tone. Even it looked like Saruman's tower in 50-story tall, mind you. Saruman holds up the planter and warns that not only will Aragorn never be king, Sauron will attack again. He also plants some doubt into Theoden's mind as well. Grima aka Worm appears on the top of the spire with Saruman. Theoden tries to appeal to him, but Saruman abuses his former servant. Big mistake. A furious Grima knees Saruman in the back. Legolas puts on arrow into the Grima, but the damage is done. Saruman falls, and lands on the spike of a whale. Remembrance of the dead and celebration of victory. Legolas and Gimli have a drinking contest, and the grumpy dwarf gets eyed. While Legolas looks unaffected, however, Shore has a cameo standing behind Legolas. Eowyn tells Aragorn of a dream of a terrible vision of darkness and a wave of water over the land. This was originally Farmer's dream in the book. Aragorn consoles her. She shows growing affection for him. The decline of Gondor. After the disastrous first meeting with Denethor, Gandalf tells Pippin the history of the city. The two notice a storm on the horizon, and it's not a natural storm. This scene is good for backstory, but really it's a breaks, slowing the movie. This is the longer version of the orc invasion. Farmer stands troops to watch this out, but the orcs come via the river. When Theoden has assembled his troops, but in a brief scene of inner dialogue, he thinks they are toast. Merry offers his services to Theoden, which the king accepts. There is a comical scene with Merry on a small horse, frantically trying to spur it on, but the horse won't move. The wizard's puppet. Denethor's bearers the recently returned from here because he not only released Frodo with the ring, he sent him into a dangerous area like Critch Ungol. Once again he puts down Fromir in favor of Bromir, even hallucinating and seeing Bromir standing behind Fromir. The hallucinations is not a shining moment for the special effects wizards as Veta workshop. Fromir is amused to see Pippin dressed as a guardsman of the tower and wearing the old uniform that he wore as a boy. A sweet scene with the two, and it builds a connection between the two, which helps sets up Pippin's willingness to save Fromir from his father late, marshalling at John Harrow. Our confrontations between Amor and Eowyn, dear farmer, warn his sister that she is fool for thinking Mary will fight and that he will run. Eomer also makes it clear he thinks that his sister has no business being there. What is the province of man, he growls. Aragorn takes the part of the dead. Aragorn tells Eowyn, I cannot give you what you seek. Figure out the rest. Dreamburg, the Haunted Mountain. The silliest and most pointless scene in the film. The smoke of the dead swirls around Gimli and he frantically blows it away. Then it nervously tiptoes over a pile of skull, which crumble with each step. Rather than having the trauma of Gimli's embarrassment, it turns into slapstick, and Gimli was already enough for a joke. The king of the dead. The dead laugh at Aragorn's request for help and fade away. The walls of the cavern crumble and even avalanche of skull pour out, forcing the trio to run. Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas find a back door and run out, where they see the corsairs. Aragorn's momentary despair, but then the king of the dead shows up the agrees. This kills the suspense from the theatrical cut. Next page for disc 2 contents. Disc 2 new extended scene. The Corsairs of Umber. Dragons block the Corsairs at a dock and orders them to stop. The Corsairs laugh. Aragorn asks Legolas to shoot a warning arrow close to the boatman's ear, but Gimli bumps Legolas and the boatswain takes it in the chest. Look close. The boatswain spattered Jackson's. The Corsairs demand to know what army will take their boats. This one says Aragorn's and the army of the dead attack. Probably the second best scene on extended edition, but again, it takes away the surprise of the undead army arriving later. Mary's simple coverage. On the way to Minas Tirith, Mary confronts a despairing Eowyn and talks of missing his friends. I think he had a crush on her. Plus, Eowyn is not wearing a helmet here, so much for going incognito. The Lord of Nazgûl, the one scene that should have been in the theatrical cut. First, there is more fighting in the street of Minas Tirith and is violent as well, which might have gotten the movie an R rating. Pippin comes to get Gandalf to stop Denethor. On the way, Dwayne Nazgûl stopped him, and Gandalf gets smacked around like he did with Saruman in the first movie. The arrival of Rohan stops is the only thing that saves Gandalf. This will be the most debated scene for its omission, I predicted. Long battle sequence with Sam Grayson's shots shows Evans fighting Sam's helmet, with Sheridan's momentarily stopping in disbelief at the sight of Ewan kicking ass. We see the fate of Gottmog, the toxic Avenger-like arc that was leading the army. Also shows Mary fighting and dispensing serious homage to a number of orcs. The House of Healing. Amor finds an unconscious Ewan, and for the first time in the movie, his facial expressions changes from his usual beast of look to one of despair. Ewan is tended by Aragorn in the houses of healing, while Eomer watches them both. Finally, Ivan opens her eyes. Later, she wakes up and sees Fromir standing beside her. Look, Alge. Pippin finds Mary. The little fella is out cold near an oliphant or crops. Aragorn subdues the planter. Aragorn takes the planter into the throne room. He unwraps the planter and has a few words with Sauron, showing him to the remade sword of Elendil. Sauron fires back with a vision of Arwen, Framir and Ewan. Ewan and Framir become a those awesomes, overlooking at Silent City. They talk softly as he comforts her. She puts her head on his shoulder while he takes her hand with the ox. Unintentionally heroes, or maybe he meant it. Sam and Frodo are disguised as orcs and wearing helms and that look like beard breaks. They are spotted and thrown into a line of marching orcs. Sam and Frodo fake a fight to escape, probably the last unbelievable segment of the whole movie, the mouth of Sauron. The black gate opens and the mouth of Sauron comes out to welcome them. It's literally a mat as it takes up half the face of creative talking to them. The mouth holds up Frodo's meatly shut as a taunt, seeing Frodo dead painfully. Aragorn snapped the behaves the best bastard. His behavior here will also be some source of much debate. My final thought on extended edition. Only one scene was truly was for inclusion in the theatrical cut. The confrontation between Gandalf and the Witch King. The rest all disposable, but again, she is not for the masses. It's for the fans who will eat it all up and not complain about pacing or going wonky. Inconsistently, even without the helmet, or that some scenes spoil later once he Corsair confirmations. The additional material in this extended edition of Return of the King is nice to have, but does nothing to advance the story. In some cases, they slow down the passing, while others should be detrimental in ways. But with maybe one exception, it's hard to make the case that this film needed this scene. They don't change the film the way Daredevil's director's cut did. The most debated issue was the omission of the scoring of the Shire. As you saw in the list, it's not here. The ending is the same as the theatrical cut. We did not get the Fromir even reading either, but it was clear the two were a couple, particularly at Aragon's coronations, but that was good enough. The three wanted scene was the housing of healing, the mouth of Sauron and Saruman's fate. You get them all. The one sure to incite debate its mouth of Sauron. Should the heroic Argons have so clowdy beheaded the smartest creation at the same time? He distracted Sauron, which lacked Frodo. I have heard the multiple endings arguments, but if they did not tie up all these loose ends, people would complain about being left hanging. It would make sense that after 13-month adventure, the Fab Four fuzzy feet could not just go back to the Shire and be content sitting around eating and drinking. You have never done a had day work, Mary had pointed out to Pippin early in the film. No, but they had a great adventure and they are having a hard time sitting around. In Mayor Sam's case, would have been nice if they put that into the ending beyond the conflicts. He acts on his promise at Mount Doom and pursues Roshi, loading to the ending people liked. In Frodo's case, His ordeal made it impossible for him to sit around at home and enjoy a normal life. That's a train of caring dealing, not to mention his shoulder not healing properly, drove him to leave for the undying lands. I would have preferred a little explanation here for casual fans so they understand just where he is going and where. If you are not familiar with the official ending, here's how it ended according to the train book. The undying lands were across the sea to the west of Middle-earth. The spirit called the Valor dwelt there, as did my elves. Mortals were not normally allowed to go to the undying lands, but because of great burden they had borne, Frodo and Bilbo were given special permission. Galadriel had made a special prayer to the Valor that Frodo be allowed to pass into the west, and Arwen. Still, I am reluctant to second guess anything Jackson did because it's hard to argue with 11 Oscars. At 25 to 50 minutes, this cut of the film is not meant of casual viewing. I was almost tempted to knock it down a point simply for dragging too much, but my better judgment won out. I don't know if I will be rewatching it anytime soon, if only for work related reasons. But again, this for the hardcores, and I am sure you will all be happy compares. On a closing note, did anyone notice that you can see lawnmower tracks on the grassy areas that surround the white tree in Minas Street? It's like seeing the extras in who forget to remove their wristwatch always cracks me up. The video, like the five previous Rings releases, Return of the King Special Extended Edition is presented in 235 anamorphic widescreen with my new DVD deck and on review of all of the previous sets. I have to say we have been rather generous to the DVD sets. They are not perfect as it then would lead you to believe. Grain and background noise is visible on both of previous E sets. The theatrical cut of Return of the King was a miracle of comparison that squeezed that 3 hour film onto one disc. But when compared to the double, it just does not hold up. The theatrical cut of Road has a bleached, washed out look to it. Blacks are not as solid as they could and should be. This extended edition, spread over 2 discs, corrected cover are colors are darker and more solid, blacker are darker and richer. Although one or two shades got a bit murky, as enhancement has been tossed into Mount Doom. The prints are flawless as always with zero print errors. So what's the problem? Jackson's really like his long shot. There are many throughout the movie, and with those long shots comes a noticeable loss of detail. It first struck me when Gandalf and company returned to Isengard and confronted Saruman, and shot from Saruman's perspective really revealed the problem Gandalf and company turned to was. Mind you, close-up shots were gorgeous. Close shots of face reveal wonderful detail and excellent skill tone and texture. CG shots look more organic than ever before. Watching Fellowship, it struck me how much the CG shots stuck out. With return, the effects look much more natural. Now here is where the disc once again excel. You get a choice between a Dolby Digital 5.1x mix or the one everyone wants to DTCS, plus a stereo surround sound mix with English and Spanish subtitles. The DTC mix is a leap and bound above the Dolby digital mix of the theatrical release, with better balancing and improved separation across the channels. The surround channels, particularly the rears, are extremely active when Gandalf and company confront Saruman. Saruman's voice echoes from all speakers. The same thing happens when Pippin's message with the Palantir. Sauron's voice filled the room. From its ill-fated attack on Osgiliath is amazing, with arrows whooshing from the left and middle channel to the right. At the same time, they have mixed Howard Sharrow's Oscar, winning Oscar, so it's better balanced with the film without being overpowering, as it was in previous release. The film has a rich, bassy sound without being as bottom heavy as a theatrical cut. All year long, I have waited for a movie to stand up to Master and Commander at the best Sonic DVD. This is it. The Lord and of the Rings, The Return of the King Special Extended Edition comes in the same letter cases as the previous extended editions, this time painted blue. Inside is an advertisement for a slipcase to hold all three extended editions and a replica of Frodo Sting short sword, which can glow blue, only $59. Our booklet maps out all of the extras on disc, plus includes a chapter listing. This extended edition comes with 4 count them for commentary tracks. This is certainly overkill and not necessary. Some commentaries have upon 2 dozen people, which can get confusing fortunately. When they talk, their name appear on the top center of the screen. This qualifies as a subtitle, so you can't use subtitles with listening to the commentaries. The first with Peter Jackson's Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens is the best of this set, not surprisingly and definitely one of the best. I have heard earlier. A nice touch is separating the participation into channels. Jackson's comes from the center channel, Walsh comes from the left speaker, and Boyens comes from the right. Jackson is his usual funny self with all kind of stories like eating the lambas bread when he could not find anything to eat on set and getting scolded by the woman for it. Since he was eating a prop, he talks about some pickup shots being done as late as this year, 4 years after some scenes were originally shot. Jackson also says the shots in the new scene, the decline of Gondor, was his favorite of the deleted scene, since the camera goes up one side of Melna's head and down the other. He points out Roy Tolkien's cameo and admits that Sword of Elanter was too long to wear in his scabbard, so Vigo had to carry it unsheathed through the rest of the movie. If you listen to one commentary, this is it. The last commentary is enormous. Echa Wood, Billy Beard, Dominic, John Reyes, and he says himself. This clearly was recorded in the pieces and stitched together. Their insight and comments range from good Lee, MC Callan, a waving, to inane banter, the hobbits as usual. The design team commentary consists of Grant Major production designer, Nagla Dixon costume designer, Richard Taylor. And if you thought that bench was dry and tedious, wait till you hear the production post-production team commentary with various M. Osborne, producer Mark Three opens with an introduction from Peter Jackson, who mostly talks like an address study with a newbie. He also jokes about being back for the 25th anniversary. Best part of all material, anamorphic widescreen video. The audio is 2 channel, which is fine, but the video for these interviews is just beautiful. Subtitles are available in English and Spanish. From book to the script is 2-parter, forging the final chapter is 24 minutes long, and I love the opening. Johan James Davis tells us Tolkien's let the film rights go for next to nothing, because he felt the book was unfilmable. Jackson's and others discuss how they took the timelines from the 3 books, since it was not told chronographically, and made it run it in linear form. Designing and Building Middle Earth is a 4-part series. First is Designing Middle Earth, a 38-minute segment on the development of conceptual design from Alan Lee and John Ho, and how they build it. She sets up the cover shell hillier and the flammable spider threads the remains of bridge of Minas Morgul, all of Minas State and states of on goal and more. Big HOs covers the heavy use of large-scale miniatures. I realized that's contradiction in terms, but that's what it was. The miniature of Minas was 172 scale, but considering Minas is 1700 feet tall in Tolkien's book, that puts into perspective miniature was even meters tall and 6.5 meters in diameter. It had over 1000 houses. The result was the realism you just don't get with Osage. They also covered the necropolis with the army of dead. The tabues, it Minas Tirith and the Ground and the Wolf had battering ram. Veta workshop is a 47-minute look at the folk at Veta, who did everything CG, props, warmth, weapons, special effects, and makeup. The crew realized that had never had the experience they would need, but they learned as they went and become expert very quickly. Out of necessity is of nothing else. They had to create unique looks for every culture, from Gondor to Hobbiton to the Orcs to the Audium. Costume design is a three-parter, looking at people and the limb of middle art plus the miniatures. Costume designer Nigella Dixon discussed the different costumes, some of which were really detailed, and then never made it onto its screen. Finally, there is a design gallery with drawings and photos of the whole design process. Home of the Horse is a 30-minute piece on the heavy use of horses on screen. In Tolkien's bio, they talked about the author's love and knowledge of horses since he was its cavalry. This segment expands on it with everything from the troubles with using the animal to funny stories on who was a bad rider. Lan Mamsikalan calls one of the heroes that played Shad Wofex our driver, and we see example of his bravery behavior.